The Containment War must be analyzed through its proper context. It was a war taking place at the top of the global hierarchy. A war between two factions, two historical potentialities, two paths which are all too different from one another. On the one hand was a current of vitality, a movement of burgeoning youth and fiery prejudice, striking out against the world that was for the sake of the world that could be, while on the other hand stood the old guard, those ancient roots of aristocracy and power that reach deep into Europe's history, which has withstood the age of Chinese colonialism and wasn't interested in abdicating their absolute, totalizing power over the status quo that they themselves had built, without a care in the world for those below. It is also important to recognize their strategic and material differences in relation to the conditions of military reality on the ground. First, Avarignia's military doctrine went by the name of Spatha Merzi, and came out of the Sea Blade Military Academy on the coast, which had long since been repurposed in the national interest. This military doctrine was one centered around rapid lightning assaults executed by highly mobile combined arms divisions, backed up by a slower-moving line of artillery support and heavily equipped death squads to catch stragglers and secure supply lines. The rapid units, called Spatha units, consisted of infantry and light armor, with an attachment of specialty soldiers like engineers or grenadiers. Meanwhile, the rear units, called Salk units, made up the hilt of the sword to the Spatha units ahead. Salk units had more variation, but were often comprised of much heavier armor units, responsible for securing occupied territory, as well as a wider variety of heavy infantry and specialty troops, like flamethrowers, engineers, artillerymen, and death squadsmen, who were equipped with cutting-edge submachine guns and close-range weapons like shotguns, in order to make their mission of eliminating enemy stragglers or incidental undesirables easier. The military units and vehicles which formed the base of Avarignia and Spatha Merzi military doctrine are as follows. Regular infantrymen. Equipped with a Velk 53 bolt-action rifle, Puskos 49 machine pistol, 3 grenades, steel helmet, and standard supplies, the regular infantryman was meant to be quick and effective, lightly equipped yet lethally capable, with the endurance to charge long distances into enemy lines and cause havoc. Special infantrymen. Equipped with a Velk Special Mark IV submachine gun, Kanu 33 short-barrel shotgun, Puskos 49 machine pistol, steel helmet, body armor, and special equipment as determined by situation, which could mean long-range rifle, extra explosive ordnance, or plates of experimental body armor. Heavily equipped and deadly, they were meant for brutal close quarters and urban combat. Light armor. The Dani 1953. A dual-use vehicle equipped with 14mm armor, a 211 horsepower engine, and several mounted machine guns, it was meant for rapid all-terrain infantry transport and swift armored support to infantry on the ground, reaching top speeds of almost 90 miles per hour. Heavy armor. The Thevru Mark I. A terrifying example of military engineering, boasting 120mm armor, a 700 horsepower engine, and a main battle cannon which fired armor-piercing and explosive rounds, supported by several heavy machine guns. This vehicle was manufactured with the intention of concluding any battle it so happened upon, and was now seeing its first use in the Containment War. No doubt the Thevru would quickly make a name for itself. Finally, in terms of air support, there was the Antha Mark VI fighter plane and the Tvami Mark III bomber, meant to contest control of the sky and rain death from it respectively. The Antha Mark VI boasted a 32-foot wingspan, maximum speed of 380 miles per hour, and a host of armaments, including 4 wing-mounted machine guns and additional space for 1 tactical bomb, for use when larger bombers were unable to penetrate air defenses. The Tvami Mark III boasted a wingspan of 135 feet, maximum speed of 357 miles per hour, and 10 mounted heavy machine guns, as well as a carrying capacity for 20,000 pounds of explosive ordnance. These made up the major components of Avarignian military doctrine, not including support roles or special vehicles. Meanwhile, the Pact of Rome took a more measured, deliberate approach to their military doctrine, known simply as Cooperante. Cooperante was defined by a division of arms, working in tandem with each other in accordance with larger regional military plans. For example, a given advance would include a light infantry division and light armor division operating as separate but complementary units, intersecting each other's paths at regular points and reporting back and forth between themselves about their standing situation, trading off men or vehicles as they may need them. All the while, a detachment of warplanes secure their slow yet inexorable advance of the front line. Another feature of Cooperante was its adaptability, as defined by the Pact of Rome drawing military might from a wide array of different nations within its alliance. The Pact of Rome's light infantry came from Germania, armed with the Fulmingewehr carbine, Parvis pistola semi-auto pistol, steel helmet, a grenade, a claymore, and standard survival kit, meant to serve the dual purpose of assaulting and holding an area. The Pact of Rome's special infantry came from Italia, armed with the Dolore 51 drum-fed submachine gun, Finalata 49 revolver, Resistenza single-use anti-tank weapon, and a steel helmet, meant to contest land held by other forms of infantry and dislodge armored units from their position. The Pact of Rome's light armor came from Carnia, a lightly armored, rapid transport vehicle called the Elandon 1930. Equipped with 9mm armor, a 270 horsepower engine, one mounted machine gun, and several gunner holes for soldiers within to fire from, its sole purpose was to get infantry from point A to point B as quickly as humanly possible, and it performed this mission best on roads meant for vehicular travel. The Pact of Rome's heavy armor came from Burgundia. A robust, high-firepower tank called the Montanus V4, boasting 100mm armor, 680 horsepower engine, and 2 battle cannons, one major and one minor, both of which fired armor-piercing rounds, supported by a mounted machine gun. The purpose of the Montanus was to outpace the rate of fire that other main battle tanks could put up, and hopefully cause a rout when combined with other Montanus tanks. Finally, the Pact of Rome's air support came from 2 countries, Avarignia and Samogitia, which provided the Moineau 49 fighter plane and the Griff's Mark II bomber. The Moineau 49 boasted a 39-foot wingspan, maximum speed of 360 miles per hour, and various armaments, including 2 wing-mounted heavy machine guns and additional space for 2 tactical bombs or other cargo, meant to penetrate enemy airspace and effectively contest its control, providing support to pinned units on the ground. The Griff's Mark II, meanwhile, was the premier bomber of its day, boasting a wingspan of 141 feet, maximum speed of 360 miles per hour, and a threatening array of ordnance, including 10 mounted heavy machine guns, 2 shell cannons, as well as carrying capacity for nearly 30,000 pounds of explosive ordnance. The purpose of the Griff Mark II was to serve as a skyborne fortress, to enter an airspace and completely dominate it, with nearly a full 360-degree range of fire and armor thick enough to withstand almost all conventional weaponry. A powerful sight to behold, and the moment it manages to situate itself above a city is the moment that city crosses the threshold of history. There will forever be a division there, the time before and the time after the Griff flew overhead. These were the main components executing the Pact of Rome's military doctrine, Cooperante. The gears of war had lurched inexorably into motion and roared to life with a terrible spark at the Battle of Triballia Fields. It was not a case of who shot first, but rather an instance of 2 great waves crashing against each other. As the forces of the Pact weaved together a defensive line deeper into Triballia in an attempt to stymie the Avarignian invasion, the spearhead column of Avarignian heavy infantry and armor came rushing towards them in a wide V-shaped formation. There was some resistance, especially as the Pact sent a light armor division around the sides of the formation in an attempt to flank, but the wide V-shape thwarted their plans. Soon enough, Avarignian firepower proved too much, and they burst through the front line, feeding ever more troops and supplies through the gaping wound left in Pact defenses. It is here, though, that more Pact forces came to bear, and halted their advance, creating a bizarre combat situation. A light bulb-shaped intrusion of Avarignian military might now bulged into Pact territory, fed by a thin, heavily defended supply line. The goal of the Avarignians was to break containment and continue the advance while maintaining the supply line, and the goal of the Pact was to break the supply line and completely encircle Avarignian troops, slaughtering them in a so-called kill pit maneuver. All of this raged on the ground, while in the sky, the two rival air wings contested the space above the battle, seeking to secure a complete enough hold over it to initiate air support maneuvers for those on the ground, which would likely spell victory for whoever managed to do so first. The Battle of Tribalia Plains would also be known by another name from here on out, the Battle of the Bulb. Little did they know that this would go on to be the longest-lasting battle in human history. Meanwhile, in the rest of the world, as 1953 turned to 1954, it proved to be a time of heightened movement indeed. Xerotherma and Free Xerotherma, in a relative stalemate against each other, decided to expand outwards in their respective regions, securing a wider resource base. Free Xerotherma also launched assaults on Avarignian holdings in Peng Bay, establishing footholds on the coast. In West Africa, Lai Zhou was also able to make gains against Avarignia, given its present preoccupation. Phrygia also imported roughly 1 million more refugees and struggled with local revolts which began to crop up. These were put down with whatever meager resources they had left to put them down with. In the Desert War, Transarabia made marked gains against its neighbors, threatening to establish hegemony once and for all. Things seemed to be going quite well for the Japanese shogunate and their Gaijo minimization war, and the time seemed not far off when the Sea of Japan would become a Japanese lake. Overall, Mars was restless, as he continued to reap his human harvest all the world over.